What happens when one of the biggest superstars in the world walks into what she thinks is a friendly interview, only to be blindsided by one of the most confrontational hosts on daytime television? Today, we're breaking down the moment Jennifer Lopez completely shut down Sunny Hostin live on The View in a clash that left the entire studio speechless. This wasn't your typical celebrity interview gone wrong. This was a masterclass in how to handle disrespect with grace while still making it crystal clear that you won't be walked over. If you want to see how a true professional handles being attacked on live television, make sure you subscribe and let me know in the comments what you think about how Jennifer handled this situation. The morning started like any other at the View Studios in New York City. Jennifer Lopez had arrived early for what was supposed to be a standard promotional interview for her latest project. She'd done countless interviews before, navigating everything from personal questions about her relationships to professional inquiries about her career. What she didn't expect was to walk into what felt more like an interrogation than an interview. As the cameras rolled and the show went live, the co-hosts welcomed Jennifer with their usual enthusiasm. Whoopi Goldberg led the introductions with her characteristic warmth. Joy Behar cracked a few lighthearted jokes, and the atmosphere seemed perfectly normal. Jennifer settled into her chair, flashing that million-dollar smile that had captivated audiences for decades. She was relaxed, confident, ready to discuss her work and connect with the audience. But Sunny Hostin had other plans. "Jennifer, welcome to The View," Sunny began, her tone already carrying an edge that the other hosts seemed to pick up on immediately. "I have to ask you about something that's been bothering me, and I think bothering a lot of our viewers. Your recent comments about working-class families and financial struggles. Do you really think someone with your wealth and privilege can speak authentically about the average American's experience?" The question hit the studio like a lightning bolt. You could literally feel the energy shift in the room. Jennifer's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before she composed herself, but you could see in her eyes that she was processing what had just happened. This wasn't a question, it was an attack disguised as journalism. "I'm sorry, could you clarify what specific comments you're referring to?" Jennifer responded, her voice steady but with a slight cooling that anyone paying attention would have noticed. "Because I think there might be some context missing here." Sunny leaned forward, clearly not backing down. "Well, in your recent interview with Variety, you talked about understanding financial pressure and relating to families who are struggling to make ends meet. But Jennifer, you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You own multiple homes, you have private jets, you spend more on a single outfit than most families make in a year. How is that relatable? Isn't that a bit tone-deaf?" The other hosts exchanged glances. Whoopi shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Joy looked like she wanted to jump in, but wasn't sure how. Sarah Haynes appeared genuinely shocked at the aggressive line of questioning. This was clearly not the direction anyone had expected the interview to take. Jennifer took a deep breath, and you could see her making a decision in real time. She could have deflected, made a joke, tried to smooth things over. Instead, she chose to address it head-on. "Sunny, I appreciate the question, but I think you're mischaracterizing what I said," Jennifer replied, her voice gaining strength. "I never claimed to currently struggle financially. What I said was that I remember what it was like growing up in the Bronx, watching my mother work multiple jobs, seeing my family stress about bills. Those experiences don't disappear just because your circumstances change. But don't you think," Sunny interrupted, her voice rising slightly, "that when someone in your position talks about financial struggles, it minimizes the real experiences of people who are actually living that reality right now? You can afford to be nostalgic about poverty because you're not in it anymore." The studio audience was completely silent now. This had gone from an interview to a confrontation, and everyone could feel it. Jennifer's posture changed, becoming more upright, more focused. Her media training was kicking in, but so was something else, something more personal. "I think what you're doing right now is exactly the problem," Jennifer said, her voice calm but with an unmistakable steel underneath. "You're trying to diminish my experiences and my right to speak about them because I've been successful. That's not journalism, Sunny. That's just mean-spirited." Sunny's eyes flashed. "I'm not being mean-spirited. I'm asking legitimate questions that our viewers deserve answers to. When celebrities like yourself make these kinds of statements—" "Celebrities like myself," Jennifer cut her off, and for the first time, her composure cracked just enough to show the fire underneath. "What exactly does that mean? Because it sounds like you've already decided what kind of person I am before I even open my mouth." The tension in the studio was now palpable. Whoopi was clearly trying to figure out how to intervene without making things worse. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment of what was quickly becoming one of the most uncomfortable interviews in The View's history. I mean, celebrities who are completely out of touch with reality. Sunny shot back, abandoning any pretense of diplomatic questioning. People who live in bubbles and think they can relate to struggles they haven't faced in decades, if ever. That was the moment. You could see it in Jennifer's face, the exact second when she decided she'd had enough. Her expression didn't change dramatically. She didn't raise her voice, but something shifted. When she spoke again, her words carried the weight of someone who had just drawn a line in the sand. "Sunny, I'm going to stop you right there," Jennifer said, her voice cutting through the studio with surgical precision. "Because what you're doing right now is not only disrespectful to me, but it's disrespectful to every person who has worked hard to improve their circumstances. You're sitting here telling me that because I've been successful, I'm not allowed to remember where I came from or speak about experiences that shaped who I am." The studio fell completely silent. Even the crew members behind the camera seemed to freeze. This wasn't the typical celebrity deflection or diplomatic non-answer. This was Jennifer Lopez, one of the most powerful women in entertainment, drawing a line and defending it. Sunny opened her mouth to respond, but Jennifer held up her hand in a gesture that was both elegant and commanding. "No, I'm not finished. You want to talk about being out of touch? Let's talk about how out of touch it is to assume that success erases your past. You think I wake up every day and forget that I used to sleep on a pull-out couch in a one-bedroom apartment with my mother and sisters? You think I don't remember what it felt like when the electricity got shut off because we couldn't pay the bill?" The emotion in Jennifer's voice was real, raw, but controlled. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't dramatic. She was simply speaking truth with an intensity that commanded respect. The other hosts watched in fascination as one of their colleagues was being systematically dismantled by someone who clearly had enough. "But more than that," Jennifer continued, her eyes locked on Sunny's. "You're sitting here judging me for being successful as if that's somehow a crime. As if working my way from backup dancer to global superstar is something I should be ashamed of. As if creating jobs for thousands of people, supporting causes I believe in, and yes, making money in the process, makes me less worthy of having an opinion about the world I live in." Sunny tried to jump in again. "Jennifer, I never said—" "You absolutely did say it," Jennifer interrupted, her voice rising just enough to make it clear she wasn't backing down. "You said I live in a bubble. You said I'm out of touch with reality. You questioned my right to speak about experiences that are literally part of my life story. And you did it all while sitting at a table on national television, getting paid very well to attack someone who came here as your guest." The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the studio. Here was Sunny Hostin, herself a successful television personality and attorney, trying to shame Jennifer Lopez for being successful. The hypocrisy was becoming more apparent with each passing second. Whoopi finally tried to step in. "Maybe we should—" "No, Whoopi," Jennifer said, turning briefly to acknowledge her, but not losing focus. "I respect you, and I respect this show, but I'm not going to sit here and be lectured about privilege by someone who clearly has never bothered to learn the first thing about my actual story." She turned back to Sunny, her composure complete, but her message unmistakable. "You want to talk about privilege? Let's talk about the privilege of sitting behind a desk and passing judgment on people without doing your homework. Because if you had done even 5 minutes of research, you would know that I've never claimed to currently struggle financially. You would know that everything I've said about working-class families comes from a place of genuine experience and ongoing connection to communities I came from." The audience was captivated. This wasn't a celebrity meltdown. This was a masterclass in how to defend yourself with intelligence and grace while still making your point crystal clear. Jennifer wasn't losing control. She was taking control. "You would also know," Jennifer continued, "that I employ hundreds of people from those same communities. That I've invested millions of dollars in programs that help young people from backgrounds like mine get opportunities they might not otherwise have. But I guess that doesn't fit the narrative you decided to push today." Sunny's face was flushing red. She clearly hadn't expected this level of pushback, and she definitely hadn't expected to be called out so directly on her own show. "I was simply asking questions that I think—" "No, you weren't asking questions," Jennifer said, her voice now carrying the authority of someone who had completely taken charge of the conversation. "You were making accusations disguised as questions. There's a difference, and as an attorney, I'm sure you understand that distinction better than most. The legal background reference was a surgical strike. Jennifer had just reminded everyone watching that Sunny was supposed to be a professional who understood the difference between legitimate inquiry and character assassination. Joy Behar was visibly uncomfortable. Sarah Haynes looked like she wanted to disappear, and Whoopi was clearly calculating how to salvage what was left of the interview. But Jennifer wasn't done. "Here's what I find really interesting about this whole thing," Jennifer said, settling back in her chair with the confidence of someone who knew she had won the argument. "You're so concerned about me being relatable to working families, but what you've just done is attack a woman for being successful. What message does that send to young girls watching this show? That if you work hard and achieve your dreams, you'll be punished for it? That success makes you a target?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Sunny was clearly struggling to find a response that wouldn't make things worse for herself. The other hosts were exchanging glances that seemed to say they wished they were anywhere else. "I think," Sunny finally managed, her voice notably quieter than it had been at the start, "that there's a difference between being successful and being tone-deaf about that success." Jennifer smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had just been handed the perfect opportunity to deliver the final blow. "You want to talk about tone-deaf?" Jennifer asked, that controlled smile still playing at the corners of her mouth. "Let's talk about what's really tone-deaf here. What's tone-deaf is ambushing a guest on your show with accusations you clearly haven't researched. What's tone-deaf is trying to shame someone for their success while you're sitting in a television studio making excellent money yourself. What's tone-deaf, Sunny, is thinking that your position at this table gives you the right to be disrespectful to people who have worked just as hard as you have." The studio was so quiet you could hear the cameras humming. Jennifer's words weren't just hitting Sunny, they were resonating with everyone in the room. This wasn't just a celebrity defending herself anymore. This was a lesson in how to handle bullies with class and intelligence. "But you know what the most tone-deaf thing is?" Jennifer continued, leaning forward slightly, her voice taking on an almost conversational tone that somehow made her words even more powerful. "It's the assumption that, because I have money now, I've somehow forgotten what it's like to be powerless. Because let me tell you something, sitting here right now, being attacked on national television by someone who's supposed to be a professional, that's a kind of powerlessness too. The only difference is now I have the tools and the platform to defend myself." Sunny's mouth opened and closed like she was trying to find words that wouldn't come. The other hosts were watching this unfold with a mixture of fascination and horror. This had gone so far beyond a normal interview that there was no roadmap for how to handle it. "And another thing," Jennifer said, clearly not finished dismantling Sunny's position, "you keep talking about working families like there's some abstract concept I couldn't possibly understand. But those working families, they're my fans. They're the people who support my music, my movies, my businesses. I talk to them. I meet them. I hear their stories. They don't need you to speak for them or protect them from me. They're perfectly capable of deciding for themselves whether my words resonate with their experiences." Jennifer paused, letting that sink in before delivering what everyone could sense was coming next. "What they don't need," she continued, her voice gaining momentum, "is someone like you telling them that they should resent successful people instead of being inspired by them. Because that's really what this is about, isn't it? You're not protecting working families. You're feeding into a narrative that success is somehow shameful, that people who make it should apologize for making it." The audience was completely captivated. Some people were nodding along, others were wide-eyed with shock, but everyone was hanging on every word. This was television gold, the kind of unscripted, authentic moment that viewers would be talking about for years. Whoopi tried one more time to redirect. "Ladies, maybe we can?" "Actually, Whoopi, I think this is important," Jennifer said, acknowledging her while maintaining her focus. "Because what's happening here is a perfect example of something that happens to successful women all the time. We get torn down for our achievements instead of celebrated for them. We get questioned about our authenticity instead of being recognized for our hard work." She turned back to Sunny, who was looking increasingly uncomfortable with each passing second. "Sunny, you're a successful attorney. You're on national television. You have a platform that millions of people would love to have. By your own logic, doesn't that make you out of touch? Doesn't that put you in a bubble? Or does the rule only apply to people in entertainment?" The question was devastating in its simplicity. Sunny had painted herself into a corner with her own logic, and Jennifer had just made that crystal clear to everyone watching. "That's different," Sunny stammered, clearly grasping for a response. "I'm not claiming to relate to struggles I don't understand. Neither am I, Jennifer fired back immediately. I'm relating to struggles I lived through and experiences that shaped me. The difference is, you don't want to acknowledge that those experiences are valid because it doesn't fit the story you want to tell about me. Jennifer stood up slightly in her chair, a subtle power move that somehow made her presence even more commanding. But here's what I'm not going to do, Sunny. I'm not going to apologize for my success. I'm not going to pretend that achieving my dreams somehow invalidates where I came from. And I'm definitely not going to sit here and let you disrespect me on national television just because you think my success makes me an easy target. The finality in her voice was unmistakable. This wasn't just a response to Sunny's attacks. This was Jennifer Lopez drawing a line and making it clear that she wouldn't tolerate being treated with anything less than respect. You know what I find really interesting? Jennifer continued, settling back but maintaining that same intense energy. You started this whole thing by questioning my authenticity, but everything you've done since then has been the definition of inauthentic. You've been hostile disguised as journalistic. You've been accusatory disguised as inquisitive. And now you're defensive disguised as explanatory. Sarah Haynes finally found her voice. Jennifer, I think maybe there was a misunderstanding here. No, Sarah, Jennifer said gently but firmly. There wasn't a misunderstanding. This was very deliberate. Sunny came into this interview with an agenda, and that agenda was to try to make me look bad. The problem is, she didn't do her homework. She underestimated who she was dealing with, and now she's facing the consequences of that preparation failure. Jennifer looked directly into the camera, speaking to the audience at home. I want everyone watching to understand something. Success doesn't make you less human. Achievement doesn't erase your history. And no one, has the right to tell you that your experiences don't matter because you've worked hard to change your circumstances. She turned back to the panel, her message clear but her tone professional. I came here today to talk about my work, to connect with the audience, and to have a good time. What I didn't come here for was to be attacked by someone who clearly has issues with successful women. But I'm glad it happened, because it gave me the opportunity to show young people watching that you don't have to accept disrespect just because someone has a microphone. The studio erupted in applause from the audience. Even some of the crew members were clapping. Sunny sat in stunned silence, clearly realizing that she had not only lost this battle, but had done so spectacularly and publicly. Jennifer smiled graciously at the applause, then looked back at Sunny one final time. Sunny, I hope you learned something today. I know I did. I learned that success really does threaten some people, and that's their problem to deal with, not mine. With that, Jennifer Lopez had delivered one of the most masterful shutdowns in television history, leaving Sunny Hostin completely speechless and the entire studio in awe of how a true professional handles disrespect with grace, intelligence, and absolute authority. That's the power of knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone diminish it, no matter how big their platform or how loud their voice. Jennifer Lopez reminded everyone watching that respect isn't negotiable and success isn't something you apologize for. What did you think about how Jennifer handled this situation? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns of the most incredible moments in entertainment.